Hello, Dawn Moore, Allegiance Title Company. In today's video, I just want to remind you of the importance of having your buyers read any deed restrictions that may affect the property that they are purchasing. Even if the property is not subject to a mandatory property owners association, it may be subject to deed restrictions placed on the property by the developer. Developers place deed restrictions on properties to, quote, maintain the integrity of the neighborhood. It is the neighbors who can enforce compliance with these deed restrictions. Deed restrictions affect the use of the property. The title company will ensure title to the property, but the policy does not ensure the buyer's intended use of the property. Therefore, it's incumbent on the buyer to understand any restrictions as to their use of the property. The buyers need to read these deed restrictions. You cannot assume this responsibility for the buyer because what may be normal use to you may not be normal to your client. For example, if the deed restrictions prohibit having any farm animals on the property, what if your client has a pet potbelly pig and that pig lives in the house with your client? Does that deed restriction force them to get rid of their beloved pig in order to buy that home? I have also seen deed restrictions that prohibit anyone from running a business out of their home. If there is a lot of customer traffic related to that business, the neighbors may decide to enforce compliance with that deed restriction, and you could no longer run the business out of your home. The client who purchases that property can no longer use that home for the purpose they wanted. To protect your client from having to buy a piece of property that won't work for them, you have to insert any kind of special use requirement under paragraph 6D. That allows your client to object to any matters in title that restrict his particular special use. If your client is just going to use the property as the current seller is using the property, there's no reason to insert anything under paragraph 6D of the contract. However, if your client has a special use, you must insert that in paragraph 6D to protect his interest. I am not sure you will always know any special use that your client may have or intend to have for that property. What may be normal to you may not be normal to your client. So my recommendation, if possible, is to have your client read all the deed restrictions that are provided by the title company to them during the option period, if there is time allotted. If then your client reads some particular restriction that they can't live with, they will have the right to terminate the contract, whether they've covered it in paragraph 6D or not. Be sure your clients read the deed restrictions affecting their property. I hope this will be of help to you as you write your next contract. Allegiance Title wants to be your resource for results. We appreciate your business. Thank you.